a Dynasty game in early access. Medieval? Wild West? What about this one? Let's have a quick chat. Alright, well, what is Sengoku Dynasty? If you're a fan of the Dynasty franchise, you should be pretty familiar with this. If you're not, it's 3 games rolled into one. In order, it's a city builder, village management game, survival's the last key element, even though it's one of the biggest in the core gameplay loop. Different, same publisher, different developer, which is a common trend throughout the Dynasty games. I don't know why this is a thing, but it is. If you have played the Dynasty games before, easily Medieval Dynasty is probably the closest one. If you've never played a Dynasty game before, the best I can do is imagine Ark or Conan, or even to a degree Valheim in terms of harvesting and crafting. Not so much in combat. And then add on top of that, not just the ability to build different buildings that do different things, but also the ability to actually, sort of like Conan would be the best reference, or even Ark with the dinosaurs, get AI involved, in this case villagers, to help make your life easier as you build and expand your village. As with all early access initial thoughts, we go through the same process. What's good, what's bad, tips if you pick it up, and then some final thoughts in conclusion. Be mindful there's no hard spoilers in here, so this is a safe one to get your head around what's on the table. Let's get into the good. Even on my busted GPU, looks great, pretty smooth, especially the water. Right out of the gate, one of the standouts for an early access game, for an early access Dynasty game, is the graphical fidelity. It looks beautiful, the water looks phenomenal, you can see the hills, the cherry blossoms, the rivers, everything looks, the buildings look so authentically Japanese. There are times where you just sort of stop and look around and go, I have been teleported into ancient Japan. When you look around, you really feel like you're in a living world, visually at least. But it's not just the visuals, it's the audio as well. And for those of you that were here for the Wild West Dynasty review, you will remember we had some issues with the audio at early access. Where is the sound? It's gone. It's not here. There's no wind, no birds, no animals, no water, no anything. It's dead silent. And the reality is, it gets a bit uncomfortable. The audio, you can hear the little critter in the background, like a cricket. I'm gonna go with cricket. You can hear the like waves, the occasional bird, rustle of trees. Like, it's one of those games where, let me go back to the beach real quick. You can stand here between that soft music. You can close your eyes. You can almost picture at least something close to where we are, just based on the audio. And you can see those issues are just not reflected here. The ambience, the movement, how it feels to be in the world. It's all so well done. 2, 3, 4 days out of launch.
大名の一存は国を火の海へと変えた。それから故郷の村を離れ、一月。
A nice little touch is the Japanese art theme. And look, it's not just in the cutscene at the start, it appears in little moments like when you find a shrine. And again, this ties in not just with the visual. There's actually the intro cinematic spoken in Japanese. It really sets the mood right from the get-go. It's not too complicated to play and navigate. If you've done Medieval Dynasty especially before, you'll find it mostly intuitive. It's a little bit more complicated in some areas, but not too bad. If you've never played a Dynasty game before, I think the learning curve is much greater. We'll talk about some of that in tips for improvement, but it isn't as confronting as it might look at first glance. And the reward of the gameplay loop is solid. Yeah, and it leads straight into that building component. It's not just about building customization generally. Unlike other dynasties in the past, it's not just a pre-done building. You can change the location of stuff within the building, add or remove depending on the needs and how you're trying to build your village, really giving you the sense of uniqueness. Especially good here is you can build multiple villages in a co-op setting, which means that you can actually make your village feel a lot more like it is your living village that you help build, instead of, oh, I went to Sam's village, he also has a smithy. It's completely different. I could have a smithy that only makes steel and burns down all the forests of Japan, because I truly believe in the future of orc kind.
The old world will burn in the fires of industry. The forests will fall.
Special project construction workshop. Build next to a special project location. Start the special project construction process. Allows delivering resources, assigning workers, finishing it, levels you up, whatever. Unlock the recipe by following the main quests. Dynasty Legend. So you just increase your Dynasty's Legend level. It's a measure of your prestige and respect in the valley. Level it up by completing the most important quests, doing special projects. Oh! That is very cool. So, a special project, for example, this bridge that I'm looking at, custom buildings in the world like this bridge that interact on the world in a specific way that allow you to sort of build out the valley, not just inside terms of your village, but like as a more wholesome, complete. That is such a good touch. I didn't even think about that. That is such a cool little feature. Whether it be a shrine at the top of a mountain, a bridge across a river, that is a really cool touch. I really like that. Which steps into the next unique thing in this game, which we haven't seen in the Dynasties before, is sort of custom buildings. From what we found in just a few hours, there was a specific bridge over a river that you could do a special project to build. There was a watchtower on top of a hill, and from what we can see, there's a lot more that enable you to have not just the ability to build generic buildings left and right, but to have these custom and unique buildings within the landscape outside of your village that make you feel like you're having a real, actual progressive impact on the valley that you're living in, which is something we just don't see in the other Dynasty games, and it really adds an extra layer of not just immersion, but extra level of effort and detail within that game. And if you like building customization, you should like this video to support me talking about it more. So this lets you change that, but does it let me F-check? Yes! Building customization is not just limited to the insides either. You can change up the walls and move them around. You can also change up windows, the amount, doors, completely wipe out areas. It gives you a lot of freedom to really let yourself go within your village's constraints. Bit of a niche touch, but your character visually identifies what they're looking at, but not who. I can see it's a trader, a bandit, a samurai, a slave. But until I go and speak to that person, I don't know who they are, what their story is, whether they have a quest for me, whether they can sell something, teach me something. And it's little details like this that make so much more interest and life feel to the world. I'm assuming don't waste my time. Ask Andong about ironworking. One example of this is a quest we had with Andong. We wanted to learn a bit more about metallurgy, but basically we had to find who the hell Andong was. Once we finally found him, there's something in tips for this, by the way. Definitely check that out. He was able to give us a little quest after we figured out, spoke to him and saw what he had to offer and what his story was. And then as a result of the quest, we got something that I didn't expect to get as a result. And just that process and around it was quite compelling by the end of it. As opposed to, hey, I will teach you X if you go do Y, there's a level of mystery and evolution that felt a lot more natural and immersive, especially than what we've seen in the past in this genre. It's good to see the return of skill trees and perks. Games like this really benefit from rewarding you for playing within the scope of different skill sets, whether that be fighting, crafting, selling, leading, and a nice touch here, religion. There's still room to improve on this one, we'll get to that in tips, but it's really cool to see, especially considering Japanese history, that religious element plays such a big role within that skill tree, within that setting, and within the world itself, with shrines, monks, and other things that make sense from the genre and from the time period to be scattered throughout. It really just adds that extra level of detail and love and care and world building that we haven't seen in things like, for example, Medieval Dynasty. It feels like a medieval village builder, not a medieval European experience. And that's where this has gone so far above and beyond, with this and so many other aspects. But with that, there's some room for improvement. There always is, especially in early access. Let's have a quick chat about that. And in standard vibes, no audio, which, won't lie, for the size of the Dynasty franchise, it'd be nice to get voice actors. Like, it would be very nice. You're alive! Yes, when the ship went down. Right out of the gate, one of the biggest issues we have in Medieval Dynasty drove me up the wall, still exists here. Zero voice acting outside of the cutscenes so far. And as a result of that, because they are still trying to put all the love and the care and the detail in, which I encourage, it's good, it just creates walls of text. It breaks the pace of the game, it's unimmersive, it gets me to the point where I just go, I don't care, I'm not willing to keep reading. And exactly like we said in Wild West Dynasty, if I wanted to read, it'd be underwhelming, which is just, it's just unfortunate. I literally couldn't even care with what this is saying. I just let me fix the elevator. Look at all this text, man. No one's gonna read this. Yeah, okay. After all that, go talk to someone. Sick, bro. And it sucks though, because I want to get into it, but it's a novel. It's a fucking novel, man. No one's reading that. We're here to build and recruit people and hunt and survive and maybe become a bandit. Maybe not become a bandit. I'm not here to read a fucking Wild West novel. If I wanted to read a Wild West novel, I'd buy a fucking Wild West book. It doesn't need to be convoluted. And if I wanted to read a book about the Sengoku period in Japan... Oh. Anyone want to buy me a book? UI options is a bit of a weird one here. The UI has improved in a lot of ways in this one. The map looks beautiful. I know this is tips for improvement. I'm trying really hard to stay on improvement. The map looks good. Some of the UI interfaces are much more intuitive and clean and just pleasant to be in and around. But in the same token, there's gaps as well that hurt the genre, both in terms of immersion on one side or ease of use on others. A good example of this is there's no hotbar. Now, that's great for immersion. Makes it a bit harder to play. When you go to throw a spear though, even though we've gotten rid of the hotbar for immersion purposes, I guess, it's a massive white line. It tells me exactly where the spear's going to go. I feel like you should have done one or the other, or, and this is even better, give us the option to turn on and off hotbars and spear throws. Maybe there is one. There's been patches coming out non-stop. When I was playing it, maybe it wasn't there. Maybe it is now. These guys are on the move, but at the time of playing, a little bit of an inconsistency, and would have actually preferred just one way or the other at that point. And in a follow-up from that right away, the combat is definitely needing love. These games have never been known for amazing combat, but Medieval Dynasty at this point has become much better in terms of how the bow feels to handle and looks and engages with the world. At the moment, Medieval Dynasty probably takes the cake on combat compared to Sengoku. And the reason is, really, Sengoku at the moment is just a poke fest. You're just poking. But I think Medieval Dynasty has taken a long time to get there. And Sengoku, despite the fact that it's very poke heavy, I haven't got the katana yet or the bow yet, so hopefully there's rooms there. The emphasis on combat from the get-go, I think is going to mean really good things for this movie. I know this is tips for improvement. I'm sorry. It's a good game. Spoiler alert for conclusion, but it definitely gets me excited for what's going to come. But today, the odd bandit you run into is not compelling content, and the poke sesh does not feel engaging in terms of a combat style, and it would be nice to see a little bit more come of it. This is sort of a bit of a UI element as well, but it's also a gameplay element. I haven't made up my mind yet on the inventory. My gut is telling me I don't like it. In all games of this genre, it's based on weight. I can carry a bajillion feathers, or I can carry, like, you know, a log. And it depends on my ability to carry. And this ties into skills, which is coming up. But right now, the way it's set up is you've just got X amount of slots. I can carry 40 logs. I do not know how I am carrying 40 logs, but I can do it. And look, there's always a bit of a balance in games like this between that immersion element and being fun. And I'm okay, same as in Medieval Dynasty, with carrying 40 logs. Cool. It's just a little bit frustrating at times, and this is one of the big differences, is in Medieval Dynasty they stack. So when I go to move them between containers, it's just a lot more convenient. Here I've got to manually select every bit of clay, every bit of iron that I've mined, every single log, and manually do something with it, which is already just not intuitively built. It's a very crunchy system at the moment. So it's just not great in terms of quality of life, which is a bit disappointing. And if you don't subscribe, my views on carry weight and inventory management, you should subscribe to this video so that you can debate it with me on other videos in the future as well. I was unaware at the time, but apparently in the Sengoku period, player characters don't drink. No clue how this has occurred, but there's no water requirement for you as the player character in a survival game. And look, survival I think is one of the weaker elements of the Dynasty franchise. I don't think it's the main thrust. I think there are better survival games. The package is what makes it amazing. And honestly, the building and village management is very top tier in the genre, I think, as well, for what it is, a first-person builder. But no water. Really weird. Don't get it. And at the same token, your village needs water. Why can I survive in a desert and my villagers can't? Either make us all plants that don't need water, or make us all plants that need water. I don't know how to care for two plants with different needs. I'm not a gardener.
This is one of the best houseplants out there. Forget to water it for a week or two, and it'll be fine. Not because it doesn't need water, but because as long as there's enough humidity around, it can grab water out of thin air.
Which leads me straight into this next tip for improvement. The water looks amazing. Why does it not react? There's no impact of the water. You walk through it as if it's not there. It doesn't seem to really create any sort of impact or implication of when it's being interacted with. It's just a little bit bizarre and immersion breaking. And I think the reason is the level of detail and quality across the board is so high that it just really does stand out when you interact with the water, and it's just not there. Real quick, which, speaking of things not being there, and this is super nitpicky, but I did notice this. The flame looks great. When you're sprinting, it stays perfectly vertical. It doesn't, like, interact with the world around you. A lot of the physics are done okay across this game. Not great. Trees falling, example. Okay, solid. Same as the torch. It does stand out at times. Wild West Dynasty, why do you plague me? We still don't have the ability to place map markers. The map is far better here than Wild West Dynasty. Oh my god! At least I know what's on the map. At least it has a legend that makes sense and it tells me things. At least it can record the name of my village when I put the name of the village in. Like, worlds and bounds. But please, let me place my own markers. Like, I found an awesome iron supply. I have not been able to find it since. I know it's somewhere over there. I just don't know exactly where. And when I find stuff that I want to be able to go back to, even if I have to build something, maybe there is something that I can build and I haven't found it, I'm okay with that. If I can build a physical marker, put it down and it stays on the map, that's even better than just being able to magic place a marker. I think that's great. I'm going to look into that. Is that the case?
Let me look into 2020. No, not good at all.
No, it's not. But hey, I'd take that on board because honestly, little details like that really help set it apart. Last one, bit of a tip, bit weird. Co-op at launch, awesome, excited. This game and this genre is perfect for that. I'm really looking forward to playing it with friends. But not really optimized on launch from what I've seen. I haven't had the chance to go in depth myself yet, so this is secondhand knowledge. Apparently the passwords can't be custom, they're generated, you can't access them once you're in the game, so it's hard to join once you're in the game. There's a lot of connection issues and stuff. Look, it's early access, it's just at launch, this is like day 4 or 5. when I'm recording this. It was day 3 when I recorded the footage. So honestly, the only bug is, yeah, it's a little bit choppy for co-op, and occasionally I've seen in 7 hours 1 deer fly. I'm not complaining, but it would be nice to see that made a little bit easier so that you can play with our friends, because that's really cool. Alright, look, that's the lion's share without getting into the nitty gritty of tips for improvement. So now let's look at tips for you if you pick up this game and want to play without spoilers, just to make your life a little bit easier. Interesting. Must have been a bug, so it like thought it was safe, but obviously was not. Alright, this is the biggest one out of all of them. Suck it up. You can build multiple villages. Just put your first village at the guy that gives you the bell quest, because he will give you multiple quests after that. Fast travel at this time doesn't appear to be working, and hiking back and forth for very minor quest stuff is going to be frustrating when a lot of the technology and stuff and unlockable buildings are tied not to experience or levels, but to the main story quest, from what I've seen. So, you know, just a food for thought. You do you, but build your first village there. Build your second, your third, your fourth, wherever you want. Save yourself a headache. Or is it like inside? Is it like a furniture thing? Okay. I see. So we've got the carpentry station. I built that whole wood storage building because I was like,
Hey.
I've got nowhere to store. Oh, that is so tilting. It's okay. It's alright. It's learning. It's learning. Be mindful that a lot of the production buildings have sub furniture categories, which allow you to get them to do all this other stuff that you need. Because, wow, I didn't realize this at first, and I spent so long because I wanted to get my first villager to do wood for me, and it wouldn't do it because it needed general storage, it needed a wood storage, it needed all these things. And I didn't realize at the time that I could actually build the stations inside the woodcutter. So I went and built this massive general storage building, this massive wood storage building, just to get wood when I could have just built 2 boxes. This is a niche one. Water's weird. I haven't quite figured out why this is the way. It's honestly probably a tip for improvement. If you need water for your villages, build a bucket. To do that, go to your woodcutting station, not the building, the little bench you can build from the furniture in the building. Remember that from before. Out there you can build buckets. You put the buckets in the well. They turn into magic water. You put magic water in water storage. Is what it is. Most of the resources, pretty intuitive. Clay near riverbeds. Insert what clay looks like here. Once you see it, you're like, oh, okay. But it did take me a little while to figure out where clay was. Be mindful of that, because you'll need it for some of your smithy stuff and stuff down the road. Last but not least, take this with a grain of salt. A lot of stuff doesn't have the value you think it probably does. The boxes in these random houses and towers reset every week, every season. So what you can do is just go to these boxes in these towers and in the villages and stuff, and well, you're not going to struggle for a lot of gear or money, because you can then sell it back to people and then just buy whatever you need. So look, if you want an easier experience, the option's there. If you want to play a bit more faithfully, then abuse at your own risk. They're the main ones, but this is a personal preference one. Just get to the smithy ASAP. I hate stone tools. They break too fast, which is good because of what the genre is, but God, iron tools just make the experience far easier, and they are so cheap in this game. I think they should be more expensive, more in line with Medieval Dynasty, harder to acquire, more iron to use, making more valuable. But here, like, I did 1 iron run, and I had enough iron to make, I think it was 200 tools, which I think is enough for an entire city, let alone, 1 or 2 guys. So, you do you, but I'd get the iron tools ASAP. So all that together, what's the conclusion? Are you picking this thing up in early access or not? Let's find out. Very good. So yeah, I can appreciate like trying to spoiler dodge when it seems like no one on the goddamn planet has finished it. Look, straight up, this is one of the most solid early access launches I have touched, especially for such a small dev team, to the point of being borderline indie. It is smooth. It's bug-free, relatively, considering the genre and the size of the team, but it's good. It's a solid gameplay loop that is more in line with Medieval Dynasty today, after years of development, than it was with Medieval Dynasty hit early access. And god, it's not even comparable to that. But basically, is it worth $30 to $40? Is what the sort of asking price is at the moment? I think it is. I like this genre. I would pay it happily. Ooh, one sec, guys. Just, hey, future me here at the end. I do need to mention, I got a review copy. I didn't pay. I'm not getting kickbacks or anything, but, you know, just transparency. This one got for a review copy. You can go back now. The reality is, I've already spent 7 hours in this game. I will easily spend somewhere in the realm of 100 plus, because it's already close to Medieval Dynasty in terms of quality, where I have already spent so many hours, and it's at launch. Like, there's no way I don't beat that in this. I'm a fan of the genre. I'm a fan of the setting. It's gonna happen. For me, this is a no-brainer. If you've played Medieval Dynasty and you liked it, just buy it. I don't think you're gonna regret this. If you played Medieval Dynasty and you don't like it, obviously the franchise isn't for you. Why are you on this video? If you've played other survival games before, do come at this with a grain of salt. As your first Dynasty game, I think this is the one to go with. That being said, don't expect Ark, don't expect Conan, don't expect Rust or Valheim. A lot of its components are very stripped back. Don't even expect Medieval Dynasty. There's not as many animals, and there's definitely very clearly room to develop a lot of extra features, but oh my god, the stuff that's there at launch is colossal. I know I won't be bored for another 10 to 15 hours, I think, at launch. And they're already bringing stuff out at breakneck speeds. So, look, for $30, this is something I feel comfortable recommending to support. And then one of the other things that makes me comfortable recommending this, even in early access, is the dev team's approach. I've watched the devlogs, I've read a lot of their posts, and I've already seen some of the patches that have come in the days since launch. Not months or weeks, days. It's a dev team that cares. They love the genre. They love the time period. They've made the audio bytes for the weapons and for the tools and stuff by using tools that period and reproducing them. They've used authentic instruments in the music. Like, the love that is going into this game gives me faith that even at early access, it is only going to get better. And they're the early access titles that I feel like going, yeah, you know what? If you like the game, if this sounded like something exciting to you, this is the one you support. That is an example of what you don't. Well, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the early access initial thoughts. Genre I love doing. There's a few more of them if you go to the playlist. Bigger, longer, in-depth reviews for games that are finished in the review playlist. Otherwise, again, please subscribe, like. Thank you so much, and share your comments. Let me know what you thought. Tell me what you agree with, what you don't agree with, what you like, what you hate. I love the feedback, and I love being able to engage with people that are passionate about titles like these and what their thoughts are. It's the best way to grow. It's the best way to learn. It's the best way for me to prove that I'm right.